Thank you, Dr. Hawari, for your nice presentation. If there's any question for Dr. Hawari. تفضل. الميكروفون بيتحرك ها؟
triglycerides go down وال HDL goes up but the LDL goes up. So yes, that's right. عشان كده فيها كلام لسه ال LDL goes صح. Thank you.
خلاص فيش أسئلة؟ شكرا لكم جميعا.
Thank you all. Just I would like mention something that Professor Di Fronzo, there is a delay in his flight. He will reach tonight at 11:30 midnight. So there will be no lectures tonight for Di Fronzo. So we'll shift it tomorrow morning. So please be here. So last not least, it is my pleasure to present a good friend from جمهورية العربية السورية. سوري. طبعا أنا لأني دارس بسوريا أشعر بعشق شديد للجمهورية العربية السورية. الدكتور وليد قبلان هو كونسلتنت بيدياتريك اندوكرينولوجي يعمل في مستشفى تويم في العين. He's a well-known endocrinologist. I have met him in many conferences and I always impressed with his talks and his personality, and it was pleasure to have him here in فلسطين حتى يكون يزورنا بيت لحم وفلسطين والمسجد الأقصى. So he will give us a talk about glucose monitoring requirements and options in type 1 diabetes, وبعدها إن شاء الله على العشاء مباشرة. شكرا لكم.
Thank you so much, Abdussalam. It's my pleasure to be here. Let me tell you this, I travel a lot, honestly. And every time I travel, my neighbors, my family ask me where you're going, and then I tell them the country. You cannot imagine their reaction when I told many of my friends and relatives, I'm going to Palestine. It's unbelievable. Oh, please, daily, oh, niyalak, or this or that, take picture. It was amazing. So I want you to know, so many people would love to come and visit. They cannot, but they really want to come as one of their dreams. So it's a pleasure to be with you here and to be in Palestine. Like everybody said, hopefully in the future we will be presenting in Al-Quds, inshallah. However, that doesn't make me hide my frustration to be put in the last speaker. And I cannot believe I still have this number of audience. So to make it less boring, I just thought of it, okay? I'm gonna split the audience to one half, which is the 3 rows of table here, and another half there. I have some questions in my presentation, some of them medical, some of them non-medical. So the half that give me the answer first, the correct answer, will get 1 point, and they will go to dinner first. And then the half who get less point will have to wait for the dinner. Is the dinner coming or they're going to the buffet? So they will serve the winning half first, okay? Can I have my presentation? And the question will not be counted from my presentation time. I don't know who's the timekeeper. The question will not be counted because I have to wait for the answers. Oh, okay, thank you. All right, so, I cannot see it here? No? Well, in this case, no, that's okay. All right. So, no, that's okay. So I can see the answer and who raised the hand. And if you say the answer wrong, by the way, you get -1. So you don't jump to saying any answer, okay? So those would be my objective, just straightforward, nothing. It's about glucose monitoring requirement, but I need to elaborate more about the CGM. Apparently, Professor Sharif's introduction covered half of my presentation. So I will probably go quickly on those slides. You all know the diagnostic criteria of diabetes in children as well as in adults. There are 4 diagnostic criteria: HbA1c of 6.5 or above, fasting glucose of 126 milligram per deciliter or above, and then oral glucose tolerance test, 2 hours post-stimulation of 200 milligram per deciliter or above. And the last one is the random glucose of 200 milligram per deciliter or above plus symptoms. You have to keep in mind that all these with asterisks according to ADA should be done twice, so you cannot count on one reading. So the first question, that's the first question. So those diagnostic criteria I have just showed you, do they apply to plasma glucose, whole blood glucose, or both? Plasma. So 1 point for this side. You got it right. So let me show it to you again. As you can see, it's all plasma glucose. It is not the whole blood glucose, and it's not both. Well, what is the difference? Simply, plasma is a whole blood, but we take the RBCs out of it, and RBCs basically do not have sugar, so you will have the glucose in the whole blood concentrated in less volume. So basically, plasma glucose is about 10 to 15% higher than whole blood glucose, all right? However, when patients do a glucometer finger prick, what do they get? Plasma or whole blood? They get whole blood. So we're measuring whole blood. So the second question, can glucometers be used to diagnose diabetes? No. Okay, well, who said yes? Yes? Why? So he answered yes, and that's the correct answer, by the way. Even though you all said no, but the correct answer is yes, because glucometers are calibrated to show the difference in plasma glucose. So even though they measure the glucose, the whole blood glucose, they're already calibrated to show the 10 to 15% difference. So yes, you can use a glucometer to make either monitor the target or even diagnose diabetes. It is not the gold standard, okay? A side question, what is the acceptable margin of error for glucometers to be approved for use? 15. So plus minus 15% is the acceptable margin of error. So they're not the gold standard way of measuring glucose. However, if they're approved, which means they give a margin of error less than 15%, then that's enough to basically rely on their readings. Okay, so the ADA recommends that in type 1 diabetes, blood glucose should be monitored about 3 to 5, 4 to 8, 6 to 10, more than 8 times per day. I said if you say the answer wrong, I'm going to say minus, so I'm going to start applying it from now. Speak up. 6 to 10. No. 3 to 5. Okay, so we're going to get -1 here so they become 0. Any other guess? There's no 4 to 8. There's more than 8. More than 8. So you're -1 now. You were 0, you're minus. Okay, let's. So basically, it's 6 to 10 times per day. You have to remember this number, okay? Actually, this has been in the recommendation for the past several years. It's not a new recommendation. It's the SPAD and the American Diabetes Association. Where did this number come from? They have to do blood glucose reading before each meal and snacks, so that's a minimum 4 times a day. They have to do it occasionally postprandial, which means if the pre-meal glucose is high or low, they have to make sure that it is controlled after meal. So let's count, this is once per day. It becomes 5. Bedtime, that's 6 times. Let's say nobody exercised in the Middle East, so we're not going to count that. When expecting low, that's basically any day, any time. And then after treating hypoglycemia, so this is calculated to be 6 to 10 times per day, okay? Now the correlation between the number of blood glucose monitoring frequency and the drop of HbA1c has been well confirmed and reported in adult patients as well as in pediatric patients, whether they are on pump or on multiple daily injection, and from any age group between toddlers, pre-adolescents, and adolescents. So it is a fact, the more they test, the lower the HbA1c. This has been repeated again and again in multiple studies. So when we tell the patients, test more, and your HbA1c will get lower, you're not lying on them. So you have to keep that in mind. The newer glucometer for the past 15 years have become much more sophisticated. They're smaller, they need less blood, they give the reading rapidly, they have memory of hundreds of readings, a very nice software that you can download and extract lots of data. In addition, there are some unique features of measuring ketone, giving color-coded reading for the patients who might forget numbers, or even help the patients do the calculation. Much, much better than what the glucometer used to offer before probably the year 2000. In spite of that, though, Type 1 Diabetes Exchange, which is the largest registry of type 1 diabetes in America, 40,000 plus patients, almost 30 centers or more, the number keep increasing. It shows in a not very old study that when they looked at 20,000 patients from all age group, as you can see, from toddlers all the way to geriatric, the average number of glucose testing per day is 5.5 times per day. So very few patients are meeting the target of testing 6 to 10 times a day, in spite of all the advantages we have said in the glucometer. And the reason that, in spite of those advantages, glucometer are still time consuming to be done 6 to 10 times a day. They cannot be done by younger children. They give limited information. They don't tell the patient whether the reading they see now is going down or going up. They don't have alarm. Yes. اتفضل. بالعشر أصابع. بدك تعمل كل إصبع له 2 sides فعمليا, and you can do actually 20, and that's what we teach our pediatric patients. You have 10 fingers, you can check each side, so you can do 20 tests per day without going to the side again. Yeah, I showed you already. So there is no adherence to that. And again, it is much easier said than done. So I'm showing you the limitation, and that's what will bring me now to talk about the CGM. So what are the CGM? How many of you are, honestly, how many of you are not familiar with CGM? Raise your hands. Not familiar with CGM. You're all familiar. So you will answer the questions. Okay, you saved yourself. So anyway, CGM have 2 parts. They have the sensor that goes in the subcutaneous tissue, and they have the transmitter. The sensor measures the interstitial glucose, that's interstitial fluid glucose, which correlate very nicely with the blood glucose. And they basically report the results to a device or a mobile through the transmitter. Those are the advantages. So the CGM can give us up to 300 readings per day. We said we need 6 to 10 readings per day. With the CGM, you get a lot more than that. It does show the trend, either in a daily curve or in a multiple day overlay pattern. It does have alarm for hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia. So even patient who does not know his reading, the alarm will go off, and this will alert the patient that the reading must be tested to see if it's going up or down. You can see summary between 1 day up to 4 weeks, actually up to 90 days in some of the devices. And some of them needs no calibration for the whole duration, which might go up to 2 weeks. And some of them might need 2 calibrations per day. So you get about 2 calibration for 200 plus readings per day. I think this is a very nice payoff. And many of them now have Wi-Fi connectivity. So if the patient has a mobile with a Wi-Fi and his mother is, so the patient is in Beit Lahem and mother is in Canada, she can follow his readings on her mobile. If he has Wi-Fi, she has Wi-Fi. Any reading he does, it will go immediately up to several phones that the patients or the family will decide. So basically, as if they're living with him all the time. This is very convenient. So that's how they look. Those are the 3 common devices. Again, the clear part with the sensor. The white part is the transmitter. Again, I'm showing the three common devices without names, so we're not getting any commercial or biased. Well, here, actually, it showed the name. This is what you see when they are inserted. So that's the transmitter after the patient insert the device. The one I see in the upper corner is the newer model that is not available in the Middle East. That's actually the Dexcom G7. But anyway, they all look very similar, small in size and very convenient. And that's how they look on the real body, as you can see, very small, and there's nothing coming out, so patients can run and exercise and even shower and everything without taking out. So now we're gonna have a break question, which is a non-medical question. Okay? And the one who answers first will get 2 points. This is actually a jeopardy. So 2 points for this question. All right. So which one of the following cities does not share borders with al-Nasriya? Is it Haifa, Safad, Baysan, Akka, or Jenin? Do you know? So I heard Baysan, I heard Nasra. Border مع الناصرية. Akka. Wow. You know what? Shame on you. I have to say that. When I put this question, I was hesitant. I said, you will make fun of me. You don't know this. So this is Nasriya. And as you can see, all share borders, but Safad does not. You have to know your country. All right, let's move on. So Professor Sharif showed some of the data. One of the most convenient thing about the CGM is basically the report we see. Can we have a I want to give you answering question to entertain you, but you have to let me present to you so we can finish on time. So let me tell you the main component. You see up the percentage of the CGM used. Of course, some patients do not use the CGM all the time. So the higher the number, the better it is. It shows the average reading for the period you're looking at, whether it's 1 day or 1 month or 2 weeks. Most likely we use 2 weeks, as Professor Sharif said. And he elaborated enough on the time and range, so I'm not going to repeat that, but I have another slide. This is the ambulatory glucose profile, which shows all the readings of a 2 weeks or 1 week combined in one figure. And the bottom part is when we see each day individually. So you really see much more data than you can see from any meter and even from the HbA1c. Let me show you the example. Those are profile of 3 patients who have HbA1c of 7%, and they have average glucose of 154 milligram per deciliter. So by doing HbA1c, you will say perfect. By looking at the average glucose, you're gonna say perfect. Only when you look at the variability, you can tell only the first patient is perfectly controlled, because the variability, again, as Professor Sharif showed us, it is not very wide. The second one has some variability, so only 70% of the readings are in range, but we still have 25% in high, 5% are low. The last patient actually is not controlled, even though his HbA1c is 7, which is basically, say, great for many patients, but they have a very wide variability. Without CGM, we will not know this. So again, CGM tell us more data than HbA1c. And again, I'm not gonna go over this because Professor Sharif explained them. So briefly, what are the advantages of CGM over the HbA1c? CGM can be done for 2 days and 3 days and 1 week and 10 days. HbA1c is usually should be done every 3 months. Sometimes we do it every 2 months, but not less than 2 months to see the changes. You see glucose variability. You see time and range. Of course, HbA1c is the main indicator that tell us about the risk of complication from the DCCT trial, many other trials. However, when the data of DCCT was taken and imposed on the time and range, it did show the same correlation, which I will show you in the next slide. So I'm sure that maybe 5 and 10 years from this day, we will have a very solid data about time and range and complications as well. basically everything is self-explanatory here. So here's the data of the CGM were imposed on the time and range. And as you can see, for microalbuminuria on this table and retinopathy on the other table, the more time in range, the lower the risk of complication. So very, very similar correlation to HbA1c. The use of CGM has increased rapidly. This is between 2011 to 2018, increased by 6-folds. The bottom slide showed the age group, and as you can see, younger children have the highest increase in using CGM because of the alarm. It gives the parents a sense of safety that when the glucose goes out of range, the alarm goes off, because most of the children do not articulate hypoglycemia symptoms or do not even feel them. So now the alarm can help. So it's increasing in all age group, but the highest is in the toddlers. And this is the graph that shows the increase in the insulin pump at the top and insulin pump with sensor at the bottom. Again, you can see the different age group, and apparently younger patients are using those electronic device a lot more than adults, but there is increase in all age group, as you can see here. Okay, where is this? Nablus. Well, that's not the question, though. What is this building? Huh? Jamiat? No, not Mujamma Tijari. What is this building? You're from Beef. This building. You don't know? Oh my God. This is Jamiat al-Najah. Yes. Okay, well, I used Google though. Really? All right, okay. Because I have 2 slides of Jamiat al-Najah, one from different view. But anyway, that's not the question. That is not the question. Okay, quiet. I need one side to give me one fact about Jamiat al-Najah. Tell me one fact. No, one official numeric fact. Second best. What is your reference? Number 1 in what? Yeah, you know what? I'm not sure. I know it's number 1 in size. I hope you're not going to tell me it's wrong. Okay. Well, I know it's the largest university in the state of Palestine. 300 professors, 22,000 students, 19 faculties. You should be proud of it. It's really great. I was amazed when I saw this. All right, so do we have evidence that CGM has clinical value or not? I'm not going to show you boring study. I'm just going to show you 2 strong evidence. Again, type 1 diabetes exchange. This is 21,500 patients in 3 age group, younger than 13 to 26, and more than 26, or 26 and older. And in each age group, you can see 4 categories. The left 2 categories are patients who are not on CGM, whether they are on MDI or insulin pump, but they're not using CGM. The right 2 group are the patients on CGM, either with insulin pump or with multiple daily injection, but you're using CGM. And as you can see from large data here, that across all age group, patients who are using CGM, even without insulin pump, have lower HbA1c than patients who are on insulin pump without CGM. So that's very strong evidence that the use of CGM correlates with dropping in HbA1c. Here's another study of 400 patients. Again, same categories, MDI with CGM, pump with CGM, and the top 2 are no CGM. As you can see, they all have improved their HbA1c, but the drop was more pronounced in the CGM groups, and the difference was maintained for more than 2 years. More importantly, the drop in ER or diabetes-related ER visit was significantly lower in the use of CGM. Many other benefits, I'm not going to read the slides for you, but they improve the confidence about managing diabetes. they reduce the fear of hypoglycemia, they improve the quality of life. So it's many advantages that have been shown in multiple and many studies. What are, yes, sir? So that will be in the questions. We'll talk about the cost. The recommendations about the use of CGM, again, I'm going to show you the main recommendations. American Diabetes Association, 2021 CGM should be considered in all children and adolescents with type 1 diabetes. The second recommendation, it should be started as early as possible, and it should be used as many days or as consistently as possible. The SPAD, again, they're saying it's particularly important in children because they do not articulate the symptoms of hypoglycemia, or they have hypoglycemia unawareness. And the NICE guideline of this year, everyone with type 1 diabetes in England, for them, but for us anywhere probably, should be offered some form of continuous glucose monitoring. So in summary, SMBG should be done 6 to 10 times per day in patients with type 1 diabetes on MDI. The reading should be used for insulin dosing, as we just saw in the insulin intensification. You have to see the readings to know when to add insulin, how much to add insulin, and to follow abnormal readings. So 6 to 10 times per day. CGM is a very useful tool that helps in lowering HbA1c, reducing the incidence of hypoglycemia, and improving quality of life. And CGM should be considered in all children with type 1 diabetes. Most of the adults with type 1 diabetes who have hypoglycemia unawareness or high HbA1c, and definitely patients who are using hybrid insulin, or what we call the automated insulin delivery devices. They cannot take advantage of those devices without using the CGM. And the last question. So we still have this side winning, huh? Because you're -1, they're +1. So we're going to give 2 scores for the question, okay? So what is the largest sector of Palestinian economy? Agriculture, tourism, stone industry. They said it first, so stone industry. Actually, I was surprised to see this. Thank you so much. So back to your question, I can say the same question to the SGLT2 inhibitors. And what else we've heard today? Definitely, I think all the new options for treating diabetes is costly. I was sharing with my table that the type 1 diabetes prevention, that teplizumab, is $200,000 for 2 weeks. For 50% reduction in the risk of type 1 diabetes, it's $200,000. So CGM, they're not inexpensive. However, when you use them properly and you think of reducing the risk of complications, I'm sure if you do the calculation well, on the long run, you are saving money. But that should be your discussion with the decision makers in any country. Those devices should be standard of care and they should be covered.